Hello.
So I got pretty lucky and I managed to get an interview with the man himself, Hubert Moszka, which is probably the main reason why you clicked this video. In the next hour, I asked questions that I was curious about and that I know the community was wondering about. I'll leave some timestamps in the video and in the comments so you can check out the questions that you find most important yourself. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you for watching, and as always, enjoy the video. Hello.
How you doing?
How you doing, silly? Oh, I'm doing good. How you doing?
Same.
Same. Love that. Alright, well, Hubert Moszka, is that correct?
Close enough.
Yeah, okay, sorry. I don't know the exact pronunciation.
It's Moszka. It's like with
Moszka,
SH.
okay, I got it.
Yeah.
It's kind of difficult. Google Translate doesn't say it well either. Alright, so, you are, the creator, the man, or boy, whatever you prefer. I have these questions for you today for absolutely no reason at all, just because I felt like it. So let's get right into it.
Sure.
Everything has a start, and even you. So I'm wondering, first of all, how did you get into programming or, creating games?
It's a pretty long story, which pretty much dates back to the early days of my school when I was like attending primary school or like elementary school. I don't even know. Like we have different education system than America, and well, actually,
All right.
like in many other places. But I used to literally steal my brother's handbooks from his high school times. And that's how I learned how to program in some very basic languages like HTML. I mean, it's technically not a programming language, but then I learned the first real programming language, which is Turbo Pascal, language that I don't believe exists anymore or isn't really widely used. I don't even know if that's a language or a version of a language. It's been a long time, but it was like the very first introduction to programming that I had. And then it later developed to like some basic web development with PHP and JavaScript. That was like during a school that we call gymnasium here. It's like you're around 13 years old when you're starting attending that. Actually, that school no longer exists in Poland, but back in the day when I was 13, that's the type of school that I was attending. And yeah, this is where I also started playing around with Unity, and I guess it kind of stuck around, so...
Alright, I get that. Starting by stealing. Amazing.
Yeah, the best way to start.
Yeah. So yeah, you got into it, but then you created the game, I guess, after a little while. What inspired you to make the game?
The main inspiration for the game was Garry's Mod Breach game mode.
Breach, okay.
Yeah. So I was into, like, I made a couple of smaller projects, but it never ended up being anything major. I didn't release any of the games on Steam before. And the first project, like SL is the first project that ended up having its proper release.
Yeah.
The main inspiration was me and my friends were playing Garry's Mod, different game modes. We've been playing, like Trouble in Terrorist Town and Prop Hunt and many other game modes. Yeah. And one of the new game modes, created actually by a Polish guy, Canada, it was SCP Containment Breach in Garry's Mod, as a game mode in Garry's Mod. We gave it a try, we liked it, and after a couple of games we realized that the map is not changing at all, and I was offering my help, and we were brainstorming different ideas of how to make the game less repetitive and maybe have different maps on the same level, and people would just switch around spawns. There was also an idea of making all the rooms dynamic, so they would be well, Source Engine is a bit complicated, and it's not really easy to move around map parts because they're usually made in a separate software and then imported into that, and it's kind of difficult to move them around, so they would need to be marked as like dynamic objects, and that would be terrible for optimization and physics engine and everything. And eventually I realized that maybe a good idea would be to start my own project in Unity and try to adapt these mechanics, and the core mechanics is roughly the same. The division between MTF, Scientists, D-Class and SCPs, and Chaos Insurgency, this is all from the original Garry's Mod Breach game mode, and it remains to this day.
Alright, that's pretty cool. Stealing yet again.
Stealing yet again.
Well, that brings me to my next question, and why exactly choose Unity to make the game in?
That's something that I had most experience with.
All right.
I don't think nowadays it really makes a difference which engine you're gonna choose, whether Unreal or Unity or something else. There are certain limitations in one or the other, but at the end of the day, for the purposes of SL, I think it would work just as great in Unreal and in Unity. I've tried both engines. I prefer Unity at this point, and the differences aren't that big anymore.
All right.
There are certain technologies that Unreal is dominating, and these technologies aren't really something that SL would benefit from at this time.
All right.
It was the right choice to stick with Unity, considering that I wouldn't have enough experience with Unreal at the time to probably finish the game and get this prototype out in the world so quickly.
All right.
Because the first game took about the first version to release, like from start to release, it was about 8 or 9 months, so that was a relatively quick project.
Yeah, I bet.
And again, stealing, because it was pretty much asset flip at the beginning. I'm putting the stealing in quotes because obviously everything here was permitted on like basic licenses, but it wasn't our own work. It was mostly like from Asset Store and from other websites that provide free assets for use. So the game was a big asset flip at the beginning, so yeah, we're kind of going back to the stealing is the source of all success.
Damn right, you heard it here first. Well, that's really cool though, I get that, and it was definitely interesting. What do you think the game was going to be like in the future? Did you have any viewpoints, or did you just want to try it and see how it went? I mean, you talked about it being like, you wanted it to be as close as the Garry's Mod thing, or not as close, but you wanted it to be like the Garry's Mod thing. Did you, think it was going to be exact a copy, or did you want to make some changes to it in the future?
So this never, I never expected it, like none of us expected this game to last more than like a week or a month. It literally was a shitpost at that point, like at the time of the release. It was just almost a direct copy from the Garry's Mod. There were certain unique mechanics, like the Alpha Warhead was a relatively unique mechanic, Micro HID, there were certain mechanics that were original. We also had different SCPs. We didn't implement all the SCPs from there. But yeah, there were a couple of unique ideas, but again, like this wasn't meant to last.
Yeah, it was just a fun project.
Yeah, pretty much. And like from the very beginning, like the game, we always claim that the game is based on SCP Containment Breach because most of the assets are from Containment Breach, but again, like gameplay and the idea and everything, I didn't know about SCP Containment Breach until I played the Garry's Mod version. I actually didn't know about the whole SCP fandom or SCP wiki universe until playing this Garry's Mod version. So that was my first introduction to SCP, and yeah.
So if you never played at a Garry's Mod server, you'd never discover SL or SCP.
Yep, if I wasn't part of that friends group, I probably wouldn't have ever discovered that.
Damn, that is crazy to think about. Well, let's say you developed a game and you got a little around it. Is there anything that you wish you did different? I mean, most creators probably think they did something different that, would have gotten them there quicker, but do you have anything that you wanted to do different, if you could?
At the end of the day, all mistakes that we make are opportunities to learn from them. So I don't think I would change anything per se. Maybe I would, instead of making the mistakes myself, I would rather try to observe how other games failed and try to learn from their mistakes instead. But at the end of the day, that is also a learning opportunity. That is something that I had to learn in some way, one way or another. And yeah, I don't think there is anything big that I regret doing. Like there are certain minor things, like the way we handled 096 rework back in 2019 or 20. Like there were
good times.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel like 096 rework was one of the way we handled it was probably problematic. Also the way we've been rushing certain updates, and we would release the game and the game would be literally unplayable for like a couple of hours before we found the fix because it wasn't tested properly and like certain rooms were invisible or something like that. So like again, like this is nothing that has any long-term repercussions. It's just some mistakes that are embarrassing, but at the end of the day, like I said, they're just learning opportunities.
Yeah, that's smart. What about for other creators who wants to create some games? Have any, advice, suggestions for them, perhaps?
I got lucky, so I don't think I'm really qualified to
That's fair enough. I get
to give
that.
any actual advice. Do what
Yeah.
you like doing, which is the very general
thing,
advice. I really wish I could give something more here.
No, don't worry. It's good.
At the end of the day, you're going to have a lot of projects that aren't going to go anywhere. And, well, I said I'm lucky, but at the end of the day, luck, the more you give yourself chances, there is a higher chance that one day you will also get lucky and be able to do something with your project. So even if you have a bunch of failures over and over again, one day, like all it takes is for you to succeed once, and that's pretty much, and the only way of doing that is if you just keep trying.
Yeah. That's smart. That's probably the only way, I guess, or not the only, but that's probably the best way. Just to keep on trying. In the beginning, was it only you, or was it other people that started with your game? SL. I know you collab with the other guy just to help him with the Garry's Mod thing, but when you started with the SL, was it only you, or did you have other people helping you as well?
Let me just quickly clarify here, because I didn't actually end up helping Garry's Mod project that much at all. I just wanted to... I don't want to say, like, I was literally just like a community member making a suggestion. That was as far as my contributions went. So like that's
okay.
In case we were in case I just said something wrong back in the day.
I get it. Don't worry.
But yeah, so that is this part, and we had viewers who made contributions by simply suggesting certain features. I feel like this is also where the alpha warhead and the micro HID concept came from. And more importantly, we had a couple of artists from within my viewers. We had Straditarion, who was a 3D artist who made the current version of Heavy Containment Zone, all the new rooms. So that is the thing that was different from Containment Breach from the release, and that is something that he has made. He also made some other models, like the first Epsilon 11 rifle, the fusion, the laser weapon, and later there was some projects involving 079 generators. So I believe 079 generators are also his. And yeah, we also had people from the community helping out building this whole Discord server, and pretty much the current public SL Discord server used to be my private Discord for my channel. So I'm not sure how long Discord keeps logs, but if I keep scrolling down, I'm pretty sure I'll see some very basic Polish channels that we had at the very beginning. Yeah, the channels were removed and posted again a couple of times, but I'm pretty sure it's still there in the audit log.
Yeah.
If you take a look where the server was created, it was long before the release of the game. I think it was like 2016 or something. The beginning of the game was December 2017, and the server existed since June 2017, so it was long before the game was even released.
Yeah.
And yeah.
At what point did you, I don't know if you made Northwood, but what point did you start Northwood, or why?
Northwood wasn't formally registered until January 2020. We called ourselves Northwood since, I think, 2019. Effectively, like the origins of Northwood is just we didn't have a name, and we decided to call ourselves something. We made a voting what should be the name of our group, and Northwood was the most voted suggestion, and so that is pretty much the origins of Northwood.
So it was just a random name then someone suggested, or did it have any meaning?
I don't believe it had any deeper meaning. It was just people were just brainstorming different ideas for different names, and we just made a vote, and we voted Northwood. There really wasn't much thought put into that. We used to go by studio name here as a placeholder for our Discord server. There was like a studio names here as like development team or whatever, and Yeah. So we didn't have a name for a very long time. We just went by my name as the name on the official documents.
Alright, I get that. Sorry if I'm skipping through this a lot or not saying my opinions, but who were the first ones to join? Because when Northwood Studios, you said you made it in 2020, but there were people in it before. Who were the first ones, you know, put in your project or helped you?
Quite recently, a person who resigned went by Zapshk. I'm pretty sure many community members know him. He was one of the very first people that really helped creating that studio. He's been here for many years, and now it's obviously time for him to move on. Well, we're really on a good terms. He's actually helping us a lot still, even though he stepped down from his position. But he's still in the studio. He's still helping us out with some security incidents. But yeah, like that is the first person that comes to my mind when it comes to someone who had the longest, who's been here for the longest. We also have Klapek, who used to be our QA manager. We have a lot of people who've been here in the community for a very long time. As for the very early beginnings, I'm not sure if there's any real point in commenting that on that, especially since I don't really remember. Like, there are so like, that is a side note. I'm kind of going back, but because of my inability to speak English, because I didn't speak English at all until the game was released, like...
Yeah, I think I saw it on your streams at least, or like the old videos you made.
Yeah, I only spoke Polish in the very beginning, so like every interaction that I had with those people was usually through text and through Google Translate methods and stuff like that. Like, I literally couldn't have any good, like, you know, conversations with them in voice.
Yeah, I get that.
And that really messed up my memory. I really do not remember many of the people in the beginning, even though they had great contributions. I actually go back to the server and I see, like, I'm trying to like go back to the first times, but like there are people who I meet after all these years.
Yeah.
And they say that they worked for me, and then I remember I'm starting to put those puzzles back.
Damn.
But like, I'm looking in their DMs, like what we were talking about, and I don't remember these conversations ever taking place, because like it was just something that was happening, you know, like I didn't understand those discussions. We were having them, but my brain was unable to create those neural pathways or whatever it's called and make those permanent memories, which is really screwed up. Like, I have good memory overall. I remember the interactions before that happened in Polish. I remember all the English interactions that I had after I already knew how to speak English. But there is like this gap in my memory of the first year or two of SL development where I don't remember any conversation I had in English.
Alright, that's fair.
We had staff members.
Yeah, don't worry.
I remember most of the staff members. There are certain people who I have forgotten, but I do remember most of them, okay?
Don't worry, I was just joking.
I know.
Alright, interesting. Well, if you want to be part of Northwood, how would you become part of it? How do you want to join the Northwood Studios?
Are you asking how people apply for our studio?
Yeah, how did people get into Northwood Studios back then?
Back then?
Yeah.
Honestly, they would just send me an email and they would get invited to the group. Like, I had no experience of running a company. I was a 17-year-old kid. Like, I didn't know how to do anything, so we just kind of ended up having a second server. I think the very first months of development were through the public server, and then we created a second server specifically for development.
Right.
Let me actually take a look real quick. The server was created in March 2018, so it was like 4 months after the release of the game. So I would just try to get some people from the community, and yeah, it was a structural mess at the very beginning because everyone had their different ideas. There was no management structure, so everyone was just kind of doing their own thing. Programmers were implementing their own features, and then we would run into conflicts, and then me not having any experience with version control, I would just force push my changes and accidentally override other people's changes.
That's
and that caused a lot of dramas, and people were really angry at me. And I obviously didn't speak English, so I didn't understand what they were trying to tell me and why they were mad at me. And like, oh my god, could we not talk about the past, please?
Don't worry. Oh my god.
It was a mess. Holy shit. I have no idea how we have survived this long. Like, the first 2 years were easily the worst, like, the like, blissful unawareness of everything that was happening around me. And now that looking back, I have no idea that if this kind of drama were happening nowadays, if we would be able to handle that.
Yeah.
Like, internal mess.
It was just a mess in the beginning. Well, that's how you go. I mean, you gotta learn somehow. As you said earlier. Well,
yeah, learning opportunities, I guess.
yeah. Let's move on to something more cheerful then. What are some of Northwood's most proudest achievements or moments, you know? Something they really know we're happy about, or maybe got really good feedback on?
I really I liked working on Parabellum update, and we also, like, that was the point where before Parabellum the game was slowly losing its popularity, we were slowly losing money, we were actually running out of our reserves, and Parabellum was like the turning point where we kind of bounced off the ground.
Right.
Could be also because of that was after the pandemic, so I can't really accredit that. But yeah, I think like my personal achievement would probably be the Parabellum update. This was also one of the very first updates that I was the game director of, because previously we had someone else as a game director. I was still the company founder, but we had a different structure where I would be a programmer and I wouldn't be the one, I would be the one approving what's going on with the game, but we had other people really deciding what's the direction of the game.
Yeah. Just to clarify, the Parabellum update, that was when the new 173 arrived, right?
New 173, new guns, new inventory system.
Yeah.
That was the part where we started refactoring the old game code, so it was no longer spaghetti code.
Yeah.
It was finally something maintainable. We finally had a good project that we could work on.
Yeah.
We could have more programmers working on it as well, because beforehand, like before Parabellum, it was again more of a organizational mess. Like that was mostly before Scopophobia. Like Scopophobia was the first update that had contributions from many different programmers, I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that we didn't have any contributions from other programmers beforehand. I'm just saying that this was the part that we actually, for the first time, started working as a team. Maybe that would be the best way of phrasing that.
Alright, well, I'll just move on to more about the game. What was one of the most difficult things when developing the game? Was it maybe the balancing of the SCPs, the items that were added, the different SCP items, or what do you think?
The biggest challenge to development was trying to get the game from the asset flip to a game that other people can work on.
Okay.
Like I was mentioning, the updates like Parabellum and Scopophobia. The game was really written in, like I said, 8 or 9 months, and it was pretty much a mess code-wise. It wasn't really, you couldn't really expand much upon that. So a lot of frameworks and a lot of refactoring had to be done in order for the game to progress, in order for the project to continue.
Yeah.
And this was probably the hardest part, getting rid of the technical debt that we have, or that I have created over the course of the first few months.
Makes sense.
I read a lot of articles regarding how new people should start and like get into game development, and prioritizing certain things. At the end of the day, this is a good thing that the game was pretty much like rushed in the beginning, because we could I could have created a prototype that can be seen by other people, and I can collect feedback as soon as it was humanely possible.
Yeah.
Again, 8 or 9 months for a video game. It's a very short time. and the whole game was really rushed, and it was very rough around the corners. But what it did allow is to collect, is to gather like data and user feedback, and we could see where we want to continue with the project.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, this was difficult to do because, like I said, the code was messy and it was, pain to work with. But at least we had people interested in the project now. We knew that we were doing it for a reason and not just for something that's going to die after a couple of days.
Yeah.
Again, it was entirely luck. Or
Yeah.
just I analyzed, or I still do analyze the past quite often. I take a look at similar stories, at similar approaches of people in the past, and again, I got lucky.
Yeah.
Nothing that I did over the course of this entire development of the first 2 years, it was nothing but just, being lucky with certain decisions. There weren't researched or anything like that. I was just blindly following my gut, and yeah, I just luckily ended up surviving this period.
What SCPs did you want added in the game, or what SCPs had you had planned of? Did you plan on making anything else, or was there anyone you couldn't add, or what inspired the canon SCPs you have now?
I will give you a relatively generic answer because we had proposals in the past and suggestions regarding certain SCPs. There were certain SCPs that we have prototyped, but the prototype wasn't successful. We found it unfun or infeasible. I will not be going too much into details which specific SCPs.
That's fine.
Because people usually can't accept the answer, which is we have learned that the hard way. Pretty much, most of the reason we are not providing official scrapped content is because people will always look at it as something that they could have gotten but haven't gotten.
Yeah.
And they would blame us for not delivering it or not being able to find solution to make it enjoyable. So this is why I'm not really going to go too much into details, but there were a couple of concepts in the past that we did consider but didn't find interesting enough or balanced enough.
All right. Well, talked about the community, feedbacks on SCPs, they went up and down. How did you go about, balancing these after the feedback's been collected? Because I know in early stages, 9.6 probably got a lot of complaints. I don't really have, any information about that. But suggesting all the changes that happen, I think there was, some issues with it. So how did you, go about balancing them, the SCPs?
It's always about trial and error. There are different communities and these communities behave differently. If we make a patron beta, we're usually gonna have people who are more advanced with the game. When we go a public beta, then we are also going to get people who are following our games closely enough to know that there's a public beta happening, and they're excited enough to switch to the experimental branch and join the server. So we are usually getting people who are better, like the average experience of players on the server is going to be higher than the typical experience on a public release.
Yeah.
And that makes things, and it also applies to our staff members. Like, most of our staff members are long-time SL players, and every time we make like a staff testing session or something like that, you're a partner, so you join those sessions, some of them, so you know that we always have those 3 or 4 or 5 people who always compete who is going to be compete for domination on the server.
Yeah.
And so the balance is always slightly off when it comes to that, and it is impossible to balance things completely. Balance things completely, period, but it's impossible to get balanced right on the day one. We usually have to release the game, on a state that we are reasonably satisfied with, and then make an adjustment update soon after. When it comes to 096, we had different scenarios. We ended up going on the patron betas and the public beta and looking how many. 096 has a issue with people running away from him. When they look at his face, they run away. It's not an issue per se, but it means that we can either make him completely unkillable during this entering rage phase, and then there's no point in trying to shoot him because you can't really do any damage to him, so you can only run away. But also, if we make him very vulnerable, I can't say that word. Very killable. Yes. Very killable during this period. People will learn and people will stop running away, and it will be unfun for 096 that every time he's about to rage, he's just gonna die. So like, and there's no way of balancing it correctly, because even if we manage to get the balance right, where there is like a 50% chance of surviving or dying, it's still going to mean that 50% of people are going to run away, and then 50% of people will start shooting him and they will die. So the next time, this remaining 50% of the people who last time tried fighting 096, some of them will also run away. So the chances of surviving are even lower and lower and lower. And like, there's no way to properly balance that. I remember that during Scopophobia, we would observe what percentage of players run away, and we would balance this around a simulated scenario where we would invite our staff members, and we would literally instruct the adequate percentage of players to run away and not engage in the fight.
Alright.
So there are different methods. It's really difficult to predict people's behavior, especially since these differ depending on what community you're playing with.
Yeah, that's the same. I've heard a lot of complaints about 9.6 recently as well, just that people are always looking down, but I know that's not true, because in some servers, you know, people look and they run away. In some servers, they just end up looking down. So it's really, like, randomized. You can't really put a finger on it.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, that's a good way to put it, I guess. It's pretty different, from servers to server as well, and people to people. Some run away, some shoot. You're just gonna always be hard to put a finger on it.
Yeah, like 096 is inherently, I don't want to say inherently unbalanced, but I don't believe there is any rework that would allow us to retain its identity and also allow it to remain playable.
Yeah.
We will I don't want to say more likely than not, but there is a chance that we will be turning 096 into a non-playable character, but that would be many years in the future when we have sufficient number of other SCPs that would fill that gap.
Yeah. So an AI 96, you think?
Maybe something like that. I'm just like, this is an idea that we're just spitballing. Like this isn't confirmed. Like this is probably what's going to happen, assuming we have sufficient replacement for 096, something that would fill that gap.
All right. That'd be cool. Speaking about, you know, the community, I don't know if you're aware, but a lot of players, I'll be going around asking a few people about, you know, what they think about the game optimizations. I want to know if you want to put out a statement about that or not. But do you have any plans to, you know, improve the optimization for the lower-end PCs?
To improve optimization to lower-end PCs, like, this is a difficult topic to discuss.
If you want to put it better, you can also just say, like, what will you do to, or will you do anything, or would you do anything, you know, to get some better optimization?
Optimization is not as simple as pressing the optimize button or just throwing a bag of money at it and hoping that it's going to resolve anything. Optimization is a very complex issue. We've had programmers joining our teams claiming that they can fix the optimization. In the past, obviously, I'm not gonna... these programmers don't work for us anymore. But, I mean, because that was many years ago, not because we...
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I'm not trying to antagonize them, but we had people joining in a team with their goal of optimizing the game, and usually they realize that the problem is more complex after the first day. There are certain systems that we are planning on having, certain optimization methods that we're experimenting with, but we didn't have as big of success as we hoped to do. Like, the biggest issue with optimization is trying to figure out what's the source of the game lagging, and when the source ends up being something that is out of our control, this is where the real problems begin. Yeah. Because you need to start working around that problem. And when you work around problems, you introduce new ones.
So I guess it also varies on the person playing, I guess. I mean, if you want, you know, better things, you're gonna have to have a better system. I mean, you can play SL on full graphics on a laptop, like a school laptop. That's not possible. if you want to play it and have like a good experience, I'd say you definitely need to put a little money into it, but not directly into the game itself, you know, just something that you could play it on.
If there are people listening that know how to optimize games and specialize in that, I would like to welcome you to the team. But again, it's quite a complex task.
Yeah. All right. Well, all right. Some time ago, I don't know if you remember, there was a sort of rework planned. I don't ever know if it's got, you know, into production, but there was a plan to do something about 9.14. At the beginning of many rounds in SL, you know, people always going to 9.14. The SCPs come in and they, you know, target the 9.14. So it's pretty much an easy kill farm for SCPs, which I've heard is making the game a little boring, a lot repetitive, and you know, it could be a really useful room, but it's usually the death trap. Do you have any plans of doing anything with that, maybe? I don't know if you can say the plans you have, if you don't even have plans, but...
I can give you a more generic answer here. We have experimented with certain solutions during a pairs session, which is our Patreon early access rebalancing session.
Yeah.
We experimented with a system called loot scaling, which means depending on the number of players, the number of loot would scale. The map size would remain the same, but yeah, like the current dependency on 9.14 is that it's usually the only way of getting access to the better loot.
Yeah.
I believe the solution to that problem is simply increasing the base loot so people are aware of different alternatives to 9.14.
I mean, yeah.
Like me personally, when I play the game, but I'm already quite good at the game, I can usually find a key card and get out of here, get out of light without, you know, having to rely on 9.14.
Yeah.
But well, it's usually not just me on the server. There is probably a couple of more advanced players on the servers, and they will usually steal all the loot from the less experienced players. And yeah, this is the main problem.
Yeah.
Scaling the loot so more players can be, so it can satisfy more players is probably the way to go.
Yeah, either that or creating more ways to, you know, get out of light. And there is one way where you have a soul manager card and a scientist card. You can just go up into heavy and steal something in 9.6 or 1.6.
Yeah, that is exactly what I'm referring to. But then again, you have only 096 and 106.
Yeah, so it's limited.
You can't get out. So if there are two players who know this mechanics and they know where to find scientist keycards and zone manager keycards so they can get to heavy as soon as possible and steal those keycards.
Yeah.
Like, that's great, but you can only satisfy two players with that.
Yeah, either that or you gotta be in a friendship group, or whatever you call it, a group, you escape with other people.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, a lot of ways. SL is really popular on PC, or it has had a lot of player base, but do you have any plans to move it maybe onto other devices, such as consoles perhaps, or anything?
As of right now, there are no plans on releasing SL on other platforms other than Windows and Linux for servers.
Yeah.
We already have some troubles maintaining SL on two different platforms. In this case, it's Windows for the clients and Linux for the servers. And we already have certain compatibility issues with that we need to work around.
All right.
And having to release it on Mac OS or OS X, or I don't even know what's the Mac system called.
Yeah, I don't care, don't worry.
Yeah, and also like PlayStation or Xbox, like this feels like pain to manage.
Okay.
I haven't tried, so maybe I would be surprised. But as of right now, I think we should get our stability straight on one platform before we continue releasing on other platforms.
Probably wise. Just wondered if it was in the thoughts.
It was. We had, like, there are many things that we consider, but there are many projects that feel simple enough, but when you actually investigate them and try to, you know, estimate what it would take to get a project completed, project like that, you end up running into a bunch of, you know, dead ends that seem to have no solutions.
All right. Any developer, you know, they have hopes for players to come back to the game. What kind of strategies do you have to make players come back for more? Are there any strategies at all, or is it just, you know?
We just focus on trying to make a good game.
Yeah.
So we've noticed a lot of players coming back after the release of Parabellum.
Yeah.
And that is probably something that we'll be investigating in the future. Having just major release, like any sort of major release, usually ends up bringing back a lot of the old players.
Yeah.
Some of them stay, some of them just check out the new update and they just leave for another year.
Yeah,
but
I've seen that as well. People come back from updates to check it out, and then the player base dies again.
yeah, and that's honestly fine, because if we look at the stats, we end up having, like, the tendency is relatively stable. The average number of concurrent players is relatively stable. When we release a new update, it usually peaks and then it slowly decays, and usually by the time we release a new update, this gets stabilized. So I'm not really concerned about losing players. It is completely fine if you enjoy the game back in the future, back in the past,
future.
and you if you enjoyed the game in the past and you no longer do that. I do that with many games, and I really don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I have seen, a lot of people also been complaining about, not dropping any updates. I don't know if it would be considered as drama, but, the April Fool's incidents, I don't know what I want to call it. People was really pissed about that one, I think.
About what?
The April Fool's update. Like, they complaining about not being any major updates. Why does Northwood not put time, I think those are, not deserving.
I don't think it's a big of a drama regarding the lack of April Fool updates.
I saw a lot of Reddit posts, at least, and like different things in game, calling them lazy. But I mean, I get it. It's just for one day. Why spend lots of time doing something that's only for one day?
Well, you can make an argument why spend time on things like new playable SCPs during Christmas and Halloween, which is...
Yeah.
I look at this as a mistake. I think we have made too large... The Halloween and the Christmas updates were way too large.
I mean...
They have taken relatively long time to develop. It took, like, back in the day, I remember a couple of years ago where Christmas or Halloween updates would take a couple of days to implement. The recent ones took literal months. Like, we've been working on a Christmas update ever since the release of Halloween update.
Yeah.
So we haven't really been doing anything for we haven't been making any permanent features for half of the previous year.
So it takes some time and leaves other projects waiting.
Yeah. So that is the reason we have decided to step down slightly and not make any of the larger features on the Halloween and Christmas updates.
I get that.
But the previous features, like the Flamingos or 3114, they are going to still be returning, because they have already been written and implemented.
Yeah.
But we won't be. But don't expect similarly large updates specifically for those events.
Yeah.
So, like, the work isn't wasted. They will be making a return seasonally, but April Fool's is different.
Yeah.
Because April Fool's is about being funny, and fun is not really recyclable. If you make the same joke every year, I'm saying, like, if you make the exact same joke every year,
it's gonna get
people
boring
are no longer gonna be excited about that.
Yeah, I get that.
Whereas having only, like, Flamingos or a certain playable SCP only once a year, that is something that people, are more excited about.
Yeah, and especially as well the durations. I mean, Halloween update, it comes like around Halloween, it lasts for a little long, about a week or two. Same with Christmas update, it comes out and stays for a few weeks. It's perfect. So it gives more opportunities to play it.
Yeah, so, like, April Fools, we could do something fun and small and all. Like, obviously no one expects us to make a whole update on April Fools.
It's just a waste of time, really. Just for one year.
There is, like, any sort of release comes with certain like, even if you want to release a simple change in game, there is a whole pipeline.
Yeah.
Unless the game is completely broken and we need to release a hotfix as soon as possible. Fortunately, we haven't had that situation in many years. But as like even a simple change, like changing one item in the game, it's at least a work of time, 1 week of time, because you need to design that, implement that, test that, make sure that it's ready for the release, prepare certain, like, there are many procedures that we need to follow. There's some, like, I don't want to use the word bureaucracy because it's generally associated negatively, but specifically to avoid situations where the game is, when we release an unplayable game, we have put these procedures to ensure a good balance between safety and player satisfaction. And as of right now, small updates like April Fools, they weren't these procedures weren't really designed around these updates.
Yeah.
And yeah, it would take unnecessarily like the amount of resources that we would need to spend on having like a one day only update.
It's ridiculous.
It's simply not worth
stupid.
it.
Yeah, I get that. That's totally understandable. I just wanted to get it out there because I've seen a lot of, posts about it and such. Yeah, okay, next question. The game's visual style has changed a lot during the past few years. You added the lights. They got both positive and negative reviews. What do you think about the future updates about it? Are you planning on adding something new to it as well? Because the game seems to be going in a more realistic direction. Getting these fancy lights and such.
We'll be announcing our future plans in a proper post.
Yeah.
What I can tell you right now is that we will continue improving the game visually.
Yeah.
While retaining the, hopefully even better level of performance.
Yeah.
I think this is a little speculation that I have made a couple of years ago, that the game optimization wouldn't worsen, but the game visually would continue improving.
Yeah.
So the ratio of visuals to performance would continue improving. So the game would, maybe it will never be able to run on the same hardware as CS 1.6, but it's going to look like a game from this century.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm obviously exaggerating here, but
No.
yeah, it's a little hyperbole. But so yeah, there are certain reworks that we're planning in the future, mostly related to level design. Pretty much everyone is aware of our never-ending Surface Zone rework project.
Yeah.
This is something that we continue making slow progress towards. This isn't something that we don't really have anything presentable at this time.
Yeah, don't worry.
But we also have planned reworks for the smaller zones like Heavy and Entrance Zone. There may not be full reworks, but there may be some smaller changes.
Smaller
things that
additions
would
are always
improve
nice.
visual. Yeah, maybe some extra variance. Because right now the game is kinda monotonous when it comes to level design.
I mean, it's nice to know there are updates in progress, and the updates doesn't have to be like full zone reworks for them to, go well. Small additions are just perfectly fine.
Yeah, people were quite excited about last Halloween edition, like the previous Halloween, the Halloween 2020 or 2021. I don't actually know. It was 2021 or 2. I can't remember, but we replaced the 012 room with the candy test room. And that is a relatively small change that people really enjoyed. Also recently in Mimicry we've changed the heavy containment zone 939's chamber.
Yeah.
Which is also something that people enjoyed.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're completely right. We don't have to go through all reworks. We probably will continue updating smaller rooms that we're not satisfied with or are most problematic from level design perspective, or simply look bad and we want to replace them.
Yeah.
But there are full reworks in plans as well.
That's nice to know. God, I miss 012. It's really amazing. You have plans to add maybe a Steam workshop for SL? I mean, I know that'll be hard to do. Again, this is just a community question, I could call it.
We haven't looked into that yet. We haven't looked into the API or anything like that. So at this point, I can't even estimate whether or not it's feasible or not.
Yeah.
Not something that we're planning to do. At this point, we're still focused on, building the core game, and then modding can come after. I think we already offer quite a lot of modding capability through server-side plugins. We also are planning on having certain changes that will improve performance of primitives, which are these little objects that server owners can spawn to build new rooms or build new entities.
Yeah.
So there are there are certain workarounds for the Steam workshop.
Yeah.
We already offer quite a large number of possibilities when it comes to modding of the game. There are no client-side mods, which Steam Workshop would probably solve. But again, right now, no real plans.
Yeah, that's fine. That brings me also to another question. Staff in servers have access to, the remote admin panel. Are there any, things or plans that would maybe be added to it? Maybe some pre-features you can, add, custom commands, I don't know. Any improvements to that, maybe?
Custom commands can already be added through mods and plugins.
Yeah, but I mean...
Remote admin kind of serves as both a server moderation tool and also as a debug tool for our programmers. So we constantly add new commands that are useful for development as well.
Yeah.
We also listen to server host suggestions regarding certain new commands. I'm not sure if you're referring to anything in particular.
No.
But yeah, remote admin is something that we constantly just develop because it is a tool that both we and server hosts benefit from.
Yeah. Okay, player feedbacks, they're pretty important for future developments. How do you handle your feedback, and how does it affect, future updates, improvements, and suggestions?
We usually collect player feedback through feedback forums. We have our feedback team who prepares certain surveys, and we ask we either ask the whole community or our patron supporters. The results are relatively similar because it's regardless of who we interview, this is usually a substantial quantity, a substantial number of players that give us quantifiable data.
Yeah.
So that is usually how we do that. We also we have game designers and other staff members interacting with the community. So we usually this is something to be careful about because there are a lot of potential for getting into some sort of echo chamber or having vocal minority talking about issues that aren't as big as they make it out to be. So we usually just resort to the public feedback forums.
Yeah.
That is the main source of our feedback.
All right. So feedback's taken seriously as well.
Feedback is taken very seriously. That is our main source for balance. And again, our game designers, we all play the game, so
yeah.
we kind of see for ourselves what's wrong with it. We are very much aware of certain SCPs being too overpowered or boring or underpowered. It's SL is not a competitive game, so there is a lot of randomness depending on which community you play with, how many players are on the server, what kind of mods the server is running. So achieving perfect balance is something that is not achievable.
Yeah.
So yeah, we usually just resort to what people say in our feedback forums, and based on our own experience from playing the game on different servers with different communities.
Yeah. All right. That is, I don't know how much time you have left, so I won't bug you more. I have a few other questions, but we can take them some other time because, it's been over an hour.
Sure thing.
So if you want to, we can take that another time.
Alright.
Alright.
And we can continue somewhere else, maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, that's
Should
fine.
Be available.
If there's anything else you want to say as well, you can say it, but I'm not going to make you say anything at all.
No, it's okay.
Alright.
Alright, well, have a good day. Is that all?
Yes.
Alright. Alright, well, you have a good day. I'm gonna head out for now. I'll send you the file very soon.
Don't worry, take your time, no rush.
Alright, thanks, bye.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Hubert Moszka. Wait, what's his name again?